When you think of the most successful badminton nation, one of the first countries that may come to mind is China. Since 1978, when China was first formally allowed to compete in the IBF, now BWF, World Championships, China has amassed 72 gold medals and is handily the most dominant nation. And while China does have a significant number of high-level players making each other better internally, and strong government backing in developing high-performance athletes, there are things that China does uniquely from other nations that has given their players an edge. In this video, we're going to talk about 7 Chinese badminton principles that you can practice and apply to your game. And yes, all 7 work for both singles and doubles. The first Chinese concept we're going to talk about is the concept of
连贯.
The direct translation on Google Translate is coherent, but it doesn't quite get the meaning right, except for this part about ideas being arranged logically, allowing them to flow in a reasonable, connected manner. Our definition for
连贯
in the badminton context is flow. Your game should be flowing, where every action you do and will do should be connected. One of the easiest ways to understand this is to think about footwork. What surprised us a little when training in China was just how little time they spent working on footwork. Of course, everyone will develop their basic scissor kick, shuffle, and crossover movements. But after that, there is not a significant amount of time allocated towards dedicated footwork practice. This is because Chinese players often train with the principle that footwork should follow and flow with the game. If you play a really good full smash, for example, you're not going to shuffle back to middle, split step, and then go up for a net kill. Most likely, you'll just sprint to the net right after the smash and kill it. And so, your footwork practice is just about finding your timing on court in an actual rally. It should follow the pace of the shots you hit and what your opponent is able to return back. And similarly, you should be training your mental to continuously follow the next shot to keep the game flowing. This is also why you'll see Chinese players have a much smaller split step compared to players like Europeans, who put more emphasis on the actual movements. Speaking of thinking about what your opponent is able to return back, another Chinese concept is
限制.
The direct translation of this is limit, which is about right. One of the things that Chinese players put high emphasis on is learning how to limit their opponent's shot options. They pay special attention to angles and shot speed to force their opponents into just a few options. If you guys watched our video about 2008 Lin Dan's secret strategy, you'll know that Lin Dan is especially good at limiting his opponents. One concept from that video is how it's much easier for players to cut off flat shots from their forehand side than their backhand side. It's also easier for players to produce more power from that forehand side. Chinese players understand this well, and so they will purposely push and lift higher towards their opponent's forehand sides while playing flatter shots at the backhand. And when you combine this idea with making your game flow, the game should generally become easier to play. For example, if you play a good spin net, your opponent is generally limited to trying to re-net or lift. In these cases, you don't need to step so far back as you have time to get back to the high lift. Similarly, no one is going to spin net a drive, and as long as you're not heavily outclassed by your opponent, there is no room to do a deception either. The only responses are generally blocks, lifts, or the most dangerous one, a drive back. And so your focus when you drive should generally be these 3 shots, and your mental and footwork should speed up with your shot. In doubles, this concept becomes even more interesting because you have a partner. One case, for example, is attacking the middle when you're the backcourt player. As long as your shot has good downwards angle, your opponents are pretty much limited to just lifting it high. If they try to initiate any sort of drive or net, the shots are generally really easy for your partner to cut off. You may also play certain shots to force your opponents into an undesirable rotation or put yourself into a good rotation. When you're good at limiting your opponent's shot selection, you should also be able to convert those opportunities into winning points. There is a Chinese phrase that you'll hear frequently in badminton called
抓球.
The direct translation of catch the ball shouldn't be taken quite literally, and a better phrase would be catch the opportunity, or in other words, anticipate. There are many levels to anticipation, but the first and general level that should be mastered right at the start is to be ready to attack when your opponents are out of position. Whenever your opponent takes it late in the front or backcourt, they're really only able to play close to the net or into the backcourt. So when that happens, you need to be ready to attack by either taking the loose front court shot early or attacking in the backcourt. The next level after is then combining this idea with limiting your opponent's shot selection. If you block towards the service line and your opponent is taking the shuttle below the tape, it is very likely for them to instinctively push or lift. And here's where you can have some of that intention, where you may actively position yourself to move to the backcourt more quickly. Here are some examples. It's not just the backcourt either. You can also do the same in the front court.
That seems a little bit in danger.
Now, what we just talked about can also be interpreted as a form of the next Chinese concept.
变速
In English, this means change speed, and you might hear us or others say change pace as well. Given how the Chinese play heavily with ideas of rhythm and flow, it also generally becomes a principle that winning points will rely on breaking your opponent's rhythm and flow. And one of the most effective ways to do this is through changing speed. Pace changes, when done correctly, will lead to your opponent mistiming their split step and taking the shuttle late. There are many different kinds of pace changes, and you can combine different elements like your footwork and shot to make your pace changes more deadly. For example, one thing you can do is speed up your footwork in certain scenarios and then play a slower shot. When you approach the shuttle fast, opponents are often expecting fast shots like drives or smashes, so the sudden slow shot can catch them off guard. There are also times when you can maintain the same speed in your footwork and then inject pace with your hand to punish those who are not ready.
Oh, that's gone.
Another way to create opportunities for yourself and break your opponent's rhythm is a Chinese concept called
摆脱
This one translates to get rid of or to break away in English. We prefer the breakaway definition, but it does require some more explanation. In our eyes, this Chinese concept is about breaking away from your opponent's shot combos and attack. We already talked quite a bit about how gameplay is supposed to flow, where, for example, if you full smash, you should naturally just follow up to the front court, immediately in singles. Well, the next level is to understand some of the things that your opponent naturally wants to do, like smash, follow-up kill, and then counter it. If your opponent smashes and you're able to whip a return cross-court, many times you would be able to break away from your opponent's attacking combo and position yourself to be on the attack. You can use this concept in doubles too. Whenever your opponents are attacking, the ultimate goal is to get a loose block or half-court lift that they can kill to finish the rally. Knowing this, you can practice countering by practicing and using returns that are not desirable for your opponent. Some good returns include lifting cross or drive blocking to stop a continuous attack. Of course, executing this takes a great deal of skill, and you're not expected to completely stop your opponent's attack on their very first shot. Your goal, however, is to not let your opponent continuously play consecutive shots that they want to play. A general rule of thumb is that after 1 or 2 attacking shots from your opponent should feel the need to neutralize the rally. If they play 3 or 4 shots that's within their combo, you will most likely lose the rally.
That serve a long time. He was doing that yesterday against Gunnar with Widersan.
Moving away from the tactical side of things a little bit, there are a few Chinese concepts we wanted to mention that will help develop your technical skills. The first one is one you may have already heard us refer to in previous videos, and that's a concept called
收紧
The literal translation is make it tight or to tighten, and although there is some element of this where you need to tighten your core, we don't want people to mistake this concept to being more stiff and tense on the court. After all, if you're too stiff and tense on the court, you won't be able to play your shots well. Instead, we like to refer to
收紧
as returning to a ready hitting position as fast as you can. This doesn't mean returning back to the middle necessarily, but moving your body to a position where you're ready to push off and play the next shot as soon as your opponent hits. If you want to effectively execute some of the previously mentioned principles, then getting really good at this upper body recovery is super important, as it'll give you the time to actually react to your opponents. And for the final Chinese principle in this video, we want to talk about is
借力
aka borrow force. The badminton context is you want to borrow force from various elements to play your shots. For example, your smash power doesn't just come from your arms, and it shouldn't. A very strong and quick smash is a combination of arm and body rotation speed. Similarly, a good spin net often comes not from you trying to spin the bird as much as you can with your fingers and arm, but from the momentum you have moving forward. You can also use the concept of borrowing force on your opponent. Whenever your opponent plays a fast shot against you, a lot of the time, you don't need to add a lot of your own power into the shot. It can be just as, if not more effective, to simply redirect their shot to a different direction. In fact, this is what a younger Lin Dan excelled at. A lot of players will watch Lin Dan and think he's an all-out attacking player, but actually he doesn't attack that much in the way that a lot of people think. He's not the type of player to force spin nets and then sprint back and jump smash. Instead, what younger Lin Dan was really good at was punishing his opponents for trying to pressure him. A lot of players will go for fast pushes or punch clears to try and make their opponents take a late forehand or backhand. But younger Lin Dan doesn't take late shots all that often, and instead cuts off fast shots early and redirects the shot speed back at his opponents. You can use this on defense too. Your opponents might go for very hard full smashes, and simply sticking out your racket can generally be enough. When you successfully defend like this, your opponent is going to be the one who's way more tired. And if you're constantly the one using less energy, because you're leveraging your opponent's strength, then you're going to win more easily. This concept of borrowing force is even more important in doubles, where your shot depends so much on the preciseness of your swing timing. You can't afford to always do a full pullback on every shot, and so the game relies heavily on your ability to leverage momentum from other sources, such as your opponent's shot and your legs. Now, these 7 badminton principles are not unique to Chinese badminton players, nor are they a full comprehensive list of all Chinese badminton principles. But they are concepts we hear frequently from Chinese badminton coaches, and rarely from other non-Chinese coaches. Regardless, knowing these concepts is one thing, and executing is a whole other. It is our hope, though, that this video has given you some things to keep in mind when you go into your next practice. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. so you don't miss out on future content. Let us know what you would like to see in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.